Okay,
All
we're
right. So
right.
ask if you can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay, just make sure it's working.
Can you hear me? Testing, testing, 1 2. Testing, 1 2.
Can you hear?
It's delayed, so you have
It's
to wait for
delayed.
me.
You have to
Okay.
wait.
Did you go live? Did you
Yes.
say yes to
Yes,
live?
yes, it said going live. Yes, it said
Yeah,
go
it's
on
live.
live.
Okay, we're live on my side. I'm testing it now.
Testing, testing, testing. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Can you hear?
Is that better?
Fantastic. I've got you guys
Fantastic.
live. You can carry on.
Brilliant.
Carry on. Right. Thanks,
Wow.
Phoebes.
Okay. Sorry about
Thanks.
that. I think we just
Thanks, eh?
reprogrammed the entire system. That was quite impressive, actually.
That was.
Well done. Well done. Okay. Wow. Technical issues, but we are solved.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. All right. So, yeah, just what I was about to say a few words about my dad, and yeah, I think the first thing that I wanted to say was, as for many of us, yeah, I've written it down here so that I can read it properly. I knew I would say this, but just to make sure that I've got it there. I really love my dad. I really loved him. He was an incredible man. Yeah, and I think just to be honest, we didn't have as much time together as I would like. But I think that is part of life, to be honest. But it was incredible how over the last few months before he passed, our relationship was really rekindling and yeah, just starting to just be reborn again. And I think there was a sense of yeah, our thing for myself and my dad was always the World Cup soccer, and you're right in the middle of it. He passed away, and it was always our thing. Every 4 years, we could definitely talk about that. But we had so many wonderful things in common. He knew everything about it, eh? He knew everything about it. 1930, who was capped, who scored the most goals. He was like a walking dictionary and or a what do you call it? Oh man, I've lost the word. What is it? What is it when like an almanac? That's a good word, almanac. There we use the walking almanac, and yeah, so wonderful. But yeah, such a special man, and I remember beautiful times of him reading to me, taking so much time out of as I was a young boy to read Tolkien to me, The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings in all the accents, all three of the books plus The Hobbit in all the accents with so much passion. I really felt like I said in my poem, I really felt like I was in the Shire most of the time as a little 10-year-old laying in my bed, and it was actually one of my favorite times and most incredible memories. But you know, I've said to so many people over the years who I've got a lot of friends who are musicians and are incredibly talented as well, and yeah, I've said to them, you know, one of the things about my dad that I remember most was no matter where I was, no matter whether we came to visit him here, whether we visited him in the many places that he stayed in, he always had a guitar in his lap. And he was always playing, always chatting to me, but always playing. And it was, you know, it was one of the things that's why that picture is just so fitting and with so much passion for his music. Shock, man. Yeah. And I was saying to Chris, my brother-in-law now, just when you guys were drumming in earlier on, we like, you know, especially in the later years of my dad's life, that was like my dad was like that was him. That was him. He would have been right here in the middle, and it was just wonderful to see as you guys were just going for it. And yeah, really, sure. I've been contemplating and thinking a lot. I've just come back from the Netherlands now. I woke up yesterday; it was -1, and today we are nice and warm. But just while I was over there, I had a little think, and I was just going through some memories. And yeah, I think each of us have beautiful memories of this incredible man who touched so many lives, and he was so special to so many of you. I wanted to just one of the things that we had conversations about was. Not just about as him being my dad and discussing the things that I'm passionate about and the things that I love. And I think that's what good dads do. They want to know what their children love and are passionate about. And one of the things that he did, even though he had slightly different beliefs to me, was he did always encourage my faith. And so I think it would be fitting even here I just wanted to read a portion of scripture to you guys. And it's a beautiful portion of scripture out of Ecclesiastes, but I think it just fits so beautifully for where it is. And it's out of Ecclesiastes 3, and it says, "For everything there is a season, a time for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to turn away, a time to search and a time to quit searching, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, and a time to be quiet and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, and a time for war and a time for peace." And just while I was driving there, I was like, why did these things happen? Why? We don't know. But what we do know is there is a time for everything, and there's a season for everything, and there is a reason for everything. We embraced him while he was here. We loved him while he was here with us, and we now in a season where physically he's no longer with us. I was laughing at you guys. I don't know if you knew, if you did this on purpose. That I'm using them because they were playing drums so passionately earlier. But I love the way when I put the picture down there. I don't know if you did it on purpose, but you were. It looked like you were playing for him. Like really, it did. You looked at him, and I thought it was so wonderful. And he'll always be with us in our memories, in our thoughts, which is so special. And
Stay strong.
have you? Oh, sure. And sometimes try and be so strong and you have it all together, but it's just, it's not necessary, Love that cry.
Loved you.
Oh, you want me to read this?
Please.
My mother. Read it loudly and slowly and clearly, please, eh?
Please.
Dust to dust, ashes to ashes. Hi, Dave.
It's a break.
Oh, is that it? Can you go sit down, please? Wow. Is that what this little? Is it like a little break pause line there? Dust to dust, ashes to ashes, and then breathe and break. Right, Mom? Okay. Hi, Dave. You often reminded me of life from a spiritual lens. How transient this earthly life is. We will meet again, beyond right and wrong. As per my last message to you, moments before you left this earth, I pray that your soul is in the protective, loving arms of divine bliss. Love you, Diane, commonly known as your ex-wife, Daffy or Dido. Why is that funny, Stella? Hey? Beautiful. Sure. All right. So, I'm not going to try and say anymore. So I think what we'd love to do is we'd love to play a song. Music was at the center of my dad's life, and Dorian's got the song all prepped. So we can just sit back, listen to the music, just take in the moment, and let some of the memories of my dad just go through your mind, and just think about him, and
I just wanted to say the song is he wrote. Sorry. Oh, this song my dad wrote for his maternal grandfather who grew up in Kenya, and he was actually he died of a heart attack after being stung by a bunch of bees. And he never met him, but he often spoke about him as being his niece. And he wrote this song for him, and it's on. He recorded it, I think, in Switzerland. Is that right? Switzerland, yeah. It's part of the Deep South, one of his Deep South albums, the second one. And I listened to both often. And if you guys haven't listened to them, this is an opportunity for you to just listen to how beautiful the music was that he made. I know him and Ronan made these albums together. Ronan says something. And I think he was really proud of them. And we're really proud of them. And I hope you enjoy it. And maybe there might be people who thought they weren't going to say anything. It'll give you an opportunity to just bring him into our presence and connect with him and just enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah, all right. So I know there were one or two people that wanted to say something. So yeah, I know Nigel mentioned that he wanted to say something. You're welcome to come forward, and then anyone else. Like I said, there's not a lot of structure. We want to just leave the floor open to anyone who wants to come and share.
Thanks very much, Jane. Thank you, everybody. My name's Nigel Penn, and I think that song was played to my grandfather, Arthur Penn, who was a missionary along with his wife, Anne. And the Salvation Army missionaries, the Salvation Army was always slightly a madcap outfit. Even today, they have a reputation for borderline insanity. They dress up in funny uniforms, walk along the streets of major cities, mostly in the impoverished areas, playing brass instruments. But they spread music throughout much of the world. And I think David's grandparents, my grandparents, were very musical. And this obviously rubbed off. My grandfather played the French horn. I think Little Gran, as we called her, used to beat the tambourine enthusiastically and sing revivalist hymns. David's mother, Dorothy, was a piano teacher. David's uncle, my father, Garth, played the second violin in the Nairobi Orchestra, which might not sound much of a distinction, but somebody has to play the second violin. What I'm trying to tell you is he came from a very musical family. I'm also a historian myself by profession, by trade, and I thought it would be useful to give a little bit of family history to those who perhaps didn't know David's roots and origins. My grandparents moved from the north of England, really, a town called Rothwell in Northamptonshire. They moved to China sometime in the early 20s, just after the First World War. My father was born there, Dorothy was born there. They lived in China for a number of years until the resurgence of nationalism in China forced them to leave. My grandfather sent the family ahead of him, and he stayed on until the last moment in China when they were kicking out all foreigners, particularly missionaries. They didn't like missionaries. They didn't like foreigners in military uniform. So you can imagine my grandfather moving through war-torn China, wearing a military uniform, preaching the gospel. You can imagine what sort of reception he got along the way. And he was stopped at one stage by a Chinese warlord or bandit who said, "What army are you in?" And he said, "I am in the army of the Lord." And the answer was, "What Lord is that?" And of course it was the Supreme Lord. But anyway, he got back safely to England, and the whole family got a hero's welcome in Rothwell. And after that, moved to take up the work of missionaries in Kenya, in Nairobi. And I know Garth, my father, and Dorothy grew up in very humble circumstances in what was sort of an African location in the heart of Nairobi, where they worked for the Salvation Army. The name of the suburb was called Kariokor, which is named after the English word carrier corps, because that's where the carrier corps regiment of African porters was assembled during the First World War before they marched off to the various fronts of the East African campaign. Well, I was born in Mombasa. David wasn't born in Kenya because his mother Dorothy took a ship at the end of the war and went to England, I suppose, to seek her fortune. She told me this trip was extremely memorable. She was on a troop ship, returning with about 1,200 troops, and she was the only young woman aboard. She had the time of her life. Every night she was somebody's, or at least 50 people's dance partners. She saw the same films 100 times. She was courted, and somehow she resisted all temptation, or so she said, until she met James, Dave's father. James was an exuberant, outgoing actor, really. He was an actor, although I think his real profession was an engineering draftsman. But that was always secondary to his love of telling stories. The great raconteur, he loved food, wine, cooking. And at some stage, I suppose England became too small for the Leadbetter family, and they came out to join us now, where we were, which was in one of the most miserable places on earth, a town on the East Rand called Springs. My mother, when we left Kenya, her heart rose at the thought of such an attractively named place, Springs. There must be fresh water, bubbling everywhere, verdant hills. When she arrived, she wept. It was scorched earth, black, burnt felt, barbed wire, smoggy chimneys, mine shaft, looked like a William Pentridge painting or charcoal. And the Leadbetters arrived. And to take up the story of David's enthusiasm of football, we were staying in a suburb called Selcourt. And I think the whole arrived and stayed with us for a while until they found their feet and moved into an even worse part of Springs called Vogelstreeksel, commonly known as Vogel's, an old mining camp. But anyway, David was 2 years younger than I was, and the first thing he said to me, never set eyes on me before, he came up to me and said, "I bet you don't know the name of all the English players in the 1966 World Cup team." Exactly. So I was a bit nonplussed. I didn't. I knew a lot of things, but I didn't know that. And Dorothy said to David, "Stop showing off, David." After that, well, I was sent off to boarding school. I didn't see much of David, but I used to hear horror stories of him. He was a difficult little child. I think he virtually bankrupted his family. He discovered at some stage that if you dialed a certain number, this is from Springs, you could get through to a radio station in England, and they would play you the record of your choice. And this was that huge trunk call fees. And David used to spend every afternoon after school listening to music on the telephone, which was costing his parents an absolute fortune in telephone bills. But from that moment on, I suppose everyone knew David was obsessed with music and bound to be a musician. And this is what I always, I suppose, grudgingly admired and increasingly respectfully admired about David. He was a musician. He sacrificed everything for it. He gave up everything to prioritize music. He lived a life of courage when it came to putting his music first. He was a true artist, as many of us aspire to be, but many of us certainly don't ever get that same courage that David had. As I say, I didn't know much of David when I was at school. Springs was a rough place, the raw end of the Rand, the Far East, as some people called it. It did produce some stellar musical celebrities like the Radio Rats, Bernaldus Niemand, who sort of somehow captured the spirit, that raw musical rebellion of Springs. And I think some of this rubbed off onto David. David, I think, I don't want to give away too many family secrets. I think David was a bit of a rebel. He took to that Springs underculture. He embraced the life of Zol and Gop, and there's a nice line from a Bernaldus Niemand song. I'm sitting in the bar at the Springs Hotel, dras these min bokkies en geen kwessie van Zol. I think that's the sort of Springs that I grew up in, and that my parents quickly got me out of and sent me to boarding school. as an adult, to cut through, I mean, David had many years which I didn't know much about. We reconnected briefly when he re-emerged in Cape Town. And the two highlights of David's adult years, I suppose, which come to my mind. One was when he played at my wife Jenny and my wedding, which took place, I think it was in 2010. After a fairly long engagement of about 33 years, Jenny and I got married. And David arrived at this place called Redlinghayes up the west coast. There's nothing there. Even the church is now burnt down, so there's not even a church in Redlinghayes anymore. David played all day, free concert for our friends. It was a fantastic occasion, very generous of him to do so. The other occasion that I remember so fondly was it his 60th birthday some years ago when he threw a party here? His 50th? Was it so long ago? Sure, it seems like yesterday. Anyway, David threw this party and he said, I don't want to get presents. Having read The Hobbit, hobbits give people presents on their birthday. So I'm going to give everybody a concert chair. And he gave the most marvelous concert playing mostly Nick Drake songs. There were all these drum players and a group of storytellers who put Rumi's poetry, I don't know if some of you are here, it was put Rumi's poetry to the beat of drums under a starlit sky around a campfire with a teepee in the background. One of the happiest moments of my life. And David gave that to me, and it's my most precious possession. So thank you, cousin. Just in conclusion, I've gone on too long, but I thought you might be interested in some history. In conclusion, when David had his accident, Gillian, his sister, phoned me, and she was too upset to speak, but she just said, Nigel, David's been a terrible accident. I don't think there's going to be much hope. It's very serious. I'll phone you in the morning. I slept that night and I had this dream. It's hard to describe dreams at the best of times. But I sort of dreamt that my material being was dissolving into elements like electrons or particles. They were all dancing around, and the dance was a dance of music. And I could see how every particle, every pulse of energy, every part of the universe was actually music. And there were endless number of infinite possibilities of putting that music together. And when I woke up in the morning, I said, that's David. That's David going. He's going into music. And the music will exist forever. Thank you.
So, thank you, Nigel. Anyone else? Anyone else? Go for it. Go for it.
Thank you. I just felt cool to say something when the music was playing and there was a raptor flying and you can see it, but it reminded me, I know David for his love of animals and nature, and I met him through Hobbit number one. And then I met everyone else, all the four-legged and furry ones. And I just, always, when I heard that David had left, I knew that he was with Django and Ruby and Hobbs and Colvin, and I knew that where he wanted to be ultimately in that beautiful realm of music and love and just an unconditional space. And I just wanted to share that side of him because it's so present here, and it always was with him. And I know he missed this place, but he was so happy to be with you in the show. And your kitties, you got 2 new kitties. So I just wanted to say thank you to David for his absolute love of nature and the animals. And I know he's being very well looked after by Django and Co.
and all those blessed feelings that he's now in spirit. So thank you. We all miss him so much.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
The floor is open. Mark. Come on, Mark.
You can stand there.
Can you stand over here, Mark?
You can stand there.
Okay.
I came to meet Dave when I decided to enroll for some musical lessons at KMA, and we just hit it off instantly. He had Rocky with him, his little dog, because he didn't want to leave the dog on his own, and we just gelled. And he was still living over here, but he was starting to make arrangements to move abroad. So anyhow, I get a phone call from him. He says, Mark, I just need a bridging place to stay after I've packed up here and I moved to England. Would you mind if I stayed with you for 3 weeks? I said, Dave, absolute pleasure. The 3 weeks turned into 8 months. But it was the most wonderful 8 months because it enhanced my whole musical education. He was my musically speaking, and I learned so much about guitars, and I started collecting guitars. And yeah, he comes home one day, and he said he'd just been to his music shop in Fisher called Thundercloud, and he had what they call a techie there. Only this one particular person was allowed to work on his guitars, whether it was a neck or fine tuning or it was a buzz on the fret. So he comes back and he says, you won't believe this. I said, what? He said, I've just heard the most amazing guitar that only Thundercloud are importing. It's called a Sigma, and it's an entry-level Martin. It's made by Martin. He says, you've got to come and listen to this. So off we go, and walk into the music store, and there it is, with Martin, and he starts playing it, and it is beautiful. It's got the most incredible. It had a Martin tone to it. So he says, well, you know, it's just so lovely. There's nothing I can do about it. So I said, how much, I went to the salesperson, how much is this guitar? It is 5,000 there. It's done. We're taking it. So we took the guitar and we walked out of the shop, and I had 1 foot out of the shop, and I was almost home safe and dry. The Dave says, no, but we're going to need a case for it. Oh, I go back to the salesperson and I said, how much is the case? The case is 1,500 rand. I said, okay, let's take the case as well. And he just loved that guitar. Yeah. And he played it at gigs as well. Just some memories of him. I miss him like mad because there wasn't a day when he was in the UK that he didn't contact me. 7 days a week, either an SMS or a FaceTime call. We just kept up with each other all the time. We were real soulmates.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm apparently the tech. My name's Jared. I'm the guy that works at Thundercloud Music. I'm the guy that fixed his guitar. If it was a broken string, the fret heights, anything, I fixed it without a problem because I enjoyed his company. It changed my life in a way I probably could never explain. I'm sure he's changed all of your lives as well. My name is Jared. I didn't even tell you. Jared Smith. I started working at Thundercloud Music when I left school. That was in 2010. No, 2004. Yeah, time gets away from me. And since then, my passion for music grew. more so when he brought me jobs to do. He wanted the most impossible things done and said, just do it, I don't care. And I did it. And he was happy. And I was happy because I got to create the music that he created in an indirect way. I've never I've never experienced what he has done in music before. And I've seen musicians come in that door multiple times. I mean, etc., etc. But
That's about right.
everyone, I'm a firm believer in that. And to me, he wasn't just a client. To me, he was my brother in music. He played at my wedding too. I got him all the way out to the Durans in the middle of winter. I don't understand how that happened. Probably was my wife. And once he got up there and he played in front of the chapel. His guitar didn't work. I was the techie on site, but I was in uniform, so I could not. But he didn't stop. He carried on playing acoustically without his amp. He carried on playing acoustically without his amp. And everyone loved it. Afterwards, they spoke about who was that guy that played at the chapel. He was amazing. And I would spread on him to everyone I knew. So, Dave, you will be always missed, my brother. And I thank you. I thank you for the time you gave me. Thank you.
Be bold. Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Lee Thompson, and I'd like to share my little story, my dad's story. And it started off as a super fan of Truly HUR band, screaming at the front of the Grand Sound concerts, wearing it, I think, the fully t-shirt. Yeah, so, my relationship with him started very much from an adoration kind of standpoint. And then, over the years, I got to start working with him, doing the whole Leadbetter and sharing things, played a beautiful concert there, and started developing a friendship with him. I was very lucky. I was lucky enough to, a few months ago, to spend like 7 days with Dave and show. And he was in a great place, very good, physically strong, he was looking great, he was practicing more than ever, playing better than ever. And I sort of let you know that he was in a good place. Yeah.
So a quick funny story I'll share quickly. My dad was actually quite he was super popular amongst my friends at school for one line from one of his songs from the Truly HUR band, and it literally. And when I told them that I played them the album. When they played this part of it, obviously they were like, "Your dad has got to be the coolest dad ever," and he was like. In 'n boom daar val 'n blaar, al die rokers by mekaar, dis boomskyf, chikalei, dis boomskyf. And they thought, wow, this dad of yours is on another level. So yeah.
I'm also coming.
I don't know if you all know me. I'm Lynette. I'm Michelle's sister. And it was the greatest pleasure having a brother. And Davey was the best brother I could have ever asked for. But I must share something absolutely hilarious. And I know it was David that had arranged it. The day that they got married, my dad was there. And I mean, we were blessed to have my dad right until 2018. was after Michelle left for the UK. He was just short of 99. And naturally, Michelle always used to say she'd never get married. And at the bright age of 40, she got married to David. And at the wedding, at my elder sister Lorraine's house in Potchefstroom, there, the whole wedding ceremony and everything, and I mean, you were there. It was Marcus. Marcus was there. There used to be. Totally Englishman. And gets up there and everything. And then, I don't know exactly how everything came, but David, with the Lobola story, suddenly this whole little package comes out there, the suitcase, and gets opened up, and there's this little house and the little cows, and the Lobola had to be paid. So that little suitcase with the little cows and everything, they took it like this, and he went and gave it to my dad, and he said, well, I just hope this will be enough for the Lobola that's got to be paid. So in any case, that is how David paid his Lobola for at his wedding. And I mean, it was brilliant. Absolutely. That was something I think everybody enjoyed. And I think today is a special day to say thanks to Shelley and David's life together as well. I mean, he had a family before and grandchildren and children, which are blessings. He loved them all. He used to share a lot with me because I've been blessed having 11 grandchildren and having it was nice, always typical grandparents. I think it's one of the nicest things to share things from the grandkids. And it was lovely sharing it with David, having that experience myself and him being so excited and unfortunately him being so far. And it was such a nice thing of meeting them now today because I've never met them. And I know David is there with us looking down and smiling at everybody. And he always used to say, Net, is your old booty? Somebody said just now, I think that's only your Afrikaans ever knew. But in any case, I just want to say thank you for the wonderful brother I had in David. And we really shared a lot. And a big part of my heart is also gone because he's not here. But like that with my sister, and we can share that together.
Yeah.
And blessings to the rest of the family, all of you. It's a big loss. And we just know that he'll always be with each and every one because his blood runs through your veins. So just remember that. He's proud of you and he loved you right till the end. And so, we'll carry on.
Hi everybody, my name is Bonnie and I was the one who came to live in this house that they've left after 12 years. So he left his beloved fairy child, Hobbs, there. And so we formed a connection because I was adopting Hobbs as a mom. And through this relationship, as this opportunity to connect with him was there, I really found a mentor and a friend in him that was really impactful, even though the moments that we shared were not many in life years. Every time we did connect, it was so deep and meaningful, and he always had so much wisdom to impart, so much guidance for me, and as just as a human in this life, with society fragmented, I had community in him. He was an elder. He took care of me, and it really made a big difference in my life and impacted me. And we actually just recently was cat helps that was part of our connection, which we always kept as a link to connect over the time. He passed away, and it was a really special moment of Dave talking to me about life and death. And he said pretty much what you were saying about there's a time for war, there's a time for love, there's a time for all of this. And he really held that wisdom and truth really, really strongly for me. And he just like explained how he's gone over the rainbow bridge. You like explore grander things, and in his words, which I hear in my head again and again, is all I think of when I think of him. Is he said, "What a legend!" And that's what I think of when I think of Dave. Like, what a legend! And yeah, so I'm just grateful for how he touched my life and took the time to give me so much wisdom the moments that we share. Yeah. Thank you very much. I think we're going to probably wrap up now and head for the tree planting part of the ceremony. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for being here and being a part of David's life. I know that he loved everybody so much. He remembered everyone, and he always would pop up out of the blue, and he would start talking about someone and an experience he had. And I think everybody sitting here somewhere along the line in our own time together in the last couple of years, that has come up in conversation where he's kind of said how much it meant to him to have you all in his life. And I think equally he touched everybody's lives so deeply. Even momentary connections meant so much. And he was just that person, that very, very, very special person. And I feel very blessed to have had 14 plus years married to him, plus the time we were friends. And I just wanted to thank you all for being here to honor him today, and to celebrate his life, because I think it was a very worthy life worth celebrating. And thank you for all the support. I cannot thank you all enough. Liz and Queen, for just opening up this beautiful space that we both call home. In fact, I still feel this is home. And everyone else who just pulled together and made this happen, Corvus and Michael and Dorian and Dane and Chris and the whole family, Diane. It's just been absolutely incredible how everyone's just pulled together and supported me